Hi folks, Sty here. Well, it's been over a week since I did any videos. I had big plans for this week. I was going to go up and basically scope out our national forest, see if the roads are open yet. Um, Usually the roads around here up in the what we call the Barrens are really in rough shape until oh the middle of April. But I thought maybe this year, because we had less snow, I'd get in to the woods a little early. Um, well, on my trip up there the other day, a couple days ago, I blew a head gasket in my truck. Well, I managed to get my truck home, but oh boy, do I have some work on my hands to fix that truck. So I don't even know if I'm going to work on that truck or not. I might just scrap it and find another vehicle. So that kept me out of the woods. So here I am at home doing videos again. Um, Sty's getting awful stir crazy. I really want to get out in the woods. And stuck here in town, again, I can hike, I guess you'd call it hike around town. But it's all city streets. It's all town streets. There's very little woods here. Couple of little city parks. That's it. Um, so I try to get outside every day and walk 2, 3 miles at least, and it's just not the same. I need to get out in the woods. I'm getting cabin fever. So I thought, well, if I can't get out in the woods, I might as well do some sty stories or something to get myself by until I can get out there. So I'm going to do some sty stories today, and this one I'm going to call If Pike Could Hike. This goes way back. Back when I was probably about, 7 years old, I think I was at the time. Our family had gone up to northern Minnesota, um, near the Boundary Waters canoe area, for a 2 week vacation. And we stayed at a kind of rustic resort. Well, the old fella that owned the resort had told my my dad that he knew of a remote lake, but that it was about a 4 to 5 mile hike into the lake with no trail system going in. You just had to know where that lake was. But that if you got in there and if you liked to fish for northern pike, that lake was full of them. Well, that sparked our interest. My brother and I, we were excited. We wanted to find that lake and go fishing for big northern pike. Well, excuse me. Well, this old boy said, well, I'll give you directions on how to get into the lake, and your pop can take you back there. Well, my dad said, I'm not hiking in there 4 or 5 miles just to go fishing. He says, we got a cabin that's 20 feet from the water's edge. I'm going to fish on the lake we're staying on. Well, the owner of the resort said, well, my son will take you in there, take you boys in there. So we were just thrilled. And so his son said, yeah, we'll head out there first thing in the morning. So the next morning, we get our fishing gear all together and our day packs with a lunch in our day pack because we figured we'll be there all day. And we met them at the lodge and off we went, hiking through the woods. And that was a rough 4 to 5 mile hike. It was really rough. There are no trails, right through the raw woods, thick, heavy timber. and we had to cross a couple of creeks, and then all of a sudden here we come across this lake. Well, that lake was almost perfectly round, and it covered only maybe 5, 6 acres. And it had a big rock right next to the shoreline that stuck out of the water. And I waded out to that rock and I climbed up on top of that rock, and I'm looking at that lake, and you could see that that lake was nothing but a big hole. The water just got darker and darker and darker towards the center. Well, I took my rod and I put a lure on it and gave it a cast out there, started reeling it in. All of a sudden, you can see the water's so clear. All of a sudden, you can see all these big northerns coming out of that deep hole after my lure. And boy, was that exciting. Well, trying to get one of those northerns to actually hit on a lure was pretty tough. We teased them, we threw all different kinds of lures at them, and they just didn't seem very interested. Well, one thing I found out is by wading around out in that water, I was getting leeches attached to me, and they're big buggers, big leeches in that lake. So I remembered something that my granddad had told me. He said, if you get in a lake that is full of leeches, fish with leeches, because that's what the fish are used to eating. I thought, well, I'm going to give it a try. So I waded around in that water for a couple of minutes and got a couple of big leeches stuck on me. I pulled them leeches off, and I put one on my hook, and I gave it a cast out there. Boom! Huge northern hit it. And I bet you it took me 10, 15 minutes to finally get that northern into the shallows where I could get a hold of them. We didn't have any nets or anything, so you had to get them close enough that you could get them by the gill plate and lift them out of the water. Well, I got them up close to me. I couldn't believe the size of that bugger. He was about 18 pounds. I was thrilled. Got him in, got him landed, put him on a leader or on a stringer, tied him to a little bush next to the water so that he'd stay alive, and left him in the water. Well, we spent all day fishing. Oh, it was so much fun. Catching northerns left and right, but nothing as big as that first one I hooked. Well, it's time to go home, right? My brother and this guy from the lodge, they said, you caught that fish, you're carrying it out. And I thought, oh my gosh. Well, when I lifted that fish up, he was half as long as I was tall. And 18 pounds to a 7-year-old, yeah, you can pick it up and carry it around a little bit, but to hike 4 or 5 miles carrying that? So we headed out, heading back to camp, and I'm carrying that fish over my shoulder. And with my day pack and the fish, I was probably carrying 30 pounds. Well, for a 7-year-old, 30 pounds is a lot of weight. I'd say after about 2 miles, I couldn't carry that fish no more. And those 2 guys wouldn't help me. So the next thing you know, I've got a hold of the stringer and I'm dragging the fish behind me. He's just too heavy to carry anymore. Well, we crossed the first creek and I looked at my fish and he's all muddy and dirty. So I rinsed him off in that creek and we headed out again. We got to the second creek and he's all muddy and dirty again, so I rinsed him off in the second creek. Then we finished hiking out to the road. Well, by the time we got back to the lodge, back home, I was so proud I wanted to show my dad the fish. So I ran down to the water's edge and rinsed the fish off. And I was yelling for my dad to come take a look at it. He come out of the cabin and he walks down to the shoreline, and I got that fish laying on the grass. And I said, "Look at what I caught at that lake." And he he looked at that fish and he says, "That fish looks like it's been run over by about 10 different semi trucks." He says, "It looks like roadkill." I said, "Well, I had to drag it home because I couldn't carry it." And I said, "My brother and that other guy wouldn't help me carry it." I said, "So I had to drag it, and that's why it looks that way." Well, here I had peeled half the skin off the thing, and it was all banged up and terrible looking. Well, at least he got to see how big the fish was. And he tried to fillet it out. He got a little bit of meat off of it, and I was able to eat my fish. Um, it probably would have made a nice wall hanger if it knew how to hike. That's why I called this one "If Pike Could Only Hike," you know? Um, because if that pike would have had legs, I would have made it walk back with me. But Pike can't hike, so Sty had to drag it all the way back to camp. Probably my most exciting fish I ever caught ended up being probably the most ugly looking fish you ever saw when I got back home with it. But there you go. There's a fishing story from Sty. If Pike could hike, it would have made my day a lot easier. So this is Sty saying thanks for watching Sty Stories, and I'm going to probably pound out a couple more today. But just something to keep my videos going on the channel until this weather changes and my vehicle gets repaired. I got up this morning, yesterday, it was beautiful out, just absolutely beautiful out, and I couldn't go anywhere because my truck's broke down. And I got up this morning, looked outside, and we got an inch of snow overnight. So, yeah, spring isn't here yet. It's playing with us. So this is Sty saying, you all have a nice day. Bye-bye.